Here are 10 unexpected expenses that destroy Airbnb businesses from the inside. Where a healthy short-term rental has 40% net margins, these 10 expenses will drive an Airbnb from the healthy black into the red and out of business. Number 1 is a day zero expense. It's blowing out your design budget before you even launch the property. Now, this will be your problem, and you're not alone. It happens to almost every single Airbnb investor with their first and or second property. You make a list of everything that you think you need to make a good short-term rental, from the furniture to the pots and pans to the artwork. But because this is your first property, you don't know what you're missing yet. And every Airbnb operator that I talk to does exactly this. They will allocate 100% of their design budget to that initial plan. They leave $0 of extra space to the surprises. For example, Trevor Drew in Fort Worth made a beautiful property, as we can see here on the screen. But what he did not plan for was to go about 20% over budget. And if you're like Drew or myself or the thousands of Airbnb hosts that came before you, the best thing that you can do is create what you think to be a best final property for 20% below your actual budget. When the day comes that you launch the Airbnb property, you may find that you've missed the toaster or the extra pillows and blankets or the rollaway bed that you thought you wanted to sleep extra people. Or you find that you don't like the artwork on the walls anymore, or you don't like the coat of paint that you picked for the accent wall. These types of mistakes happen to everybody. And even if it's not a major change like a wall color or changing out your table, you may find by accident just a couple weeks after you launch that you're missing a key amenity that everybody in your area has. And now you can't get a booking until you catch up. So give yourself 20% and that should be enough for your launch. Hidden expense number 2 is also a 0-day expense. Before you launch, it takes money and it takes time to get a listing live. Many overconfident or optimistic Airbnb operators, including myself with years of experience, we overestimate our ability to get that product up in time. We think it's going to take 6 or 7 or 10 days. Next thing you know, it takes a month or a month and a half. From 2019 to 2023, I hand-trained a woman named Haley from being my assistant to being the chief operating officer of my company. And then I took 2 years off from the business. But while I took 2 years off from the business, she launched 3 new properties in Houston, and she spent about $50,000 per property on design. But what she did not account for was her 3-week plan to launch became a 10-week plan to launch, and she still wasn't done. Every property has a holding cost. Whether it's a mortgage or a rental, you're going to be making monthly payments on that property. Insurance, electricity, and of course your debt. Every property that you spend $50,000 on that you're not generating monthly cash flows kills the lifetime value of that investment. Those properties had a 2-year lease and we wasted 10% of our income window on those properties. No matter what else we did right, we had to shave 10% off of our top of line, and it directly affects the bottom line. Here's what I mean for those of you that might be new to this concept. You have a lifetime expense to hold a property. In arbitrage, this makes a really clean example. Over 2 years, we spend $100,000 on rent. We also spend $50,000 on furniture and fixtures, stuff we can mostly take with us if we ever move out, but we still have $100,000 plus $50,000 plus other operating expenses. Our lifetime operating cost for that lease may be $210,000 between cleaning and electricity and everything else. Let's say that that property does just $10,000 a month. For this example, we would make $240,000 at the end of 2 years, and we would have $30,000 of net profit and still own the furniture. So a renewal would be great for us. We can just keep printing money. That'd be lovely. But let's say we wasted 10% of our lease term. 10 weeks is $25,000, and that $30,000 profit goes to 5. Anything else goes wrong, and we're losing money on the deal. And this applies to you if you own a property as well, because every dollar that you collect can go towards debt paydown and equity accrual. You don't want to wait just because you can. That's bad business. The sooner that you hit an equity threshold is the sooner that you can refinance if it's advantageous. If you as an owner have 5 properties or more and you pay them down to under 50% of debt, you can wrap them up in a blanket loan and refinance them outside of a traditional mortgage, so that way you can reset how many properties you get to buy with traditional mortgages. These 2 expenses, number 1 and number 2, are neighbors in a land called project management. Every project has a budget, start date, and end date. Launching a short-term rental is a project. We want to come in on time and on budget, because every day and every dollar is a wasted expense. Before we get into number 3, my name is Sean Rocky Jeech. I've been a host for 11 years. We have students in 43 countries that have made billions of dollars from this YouTube channel. And if you want to be the best Airbnb host on the planet, hit subscribe and click the bell. Every video on this channel will teach you something that you can use in your business, short-term rentals and otherwise. I have built 6 businesses in my 39 years on this planet, and some of the advice that I'm giving you is pulled in from other industries. And we are learning in the short-term rental space with concepts from print media or sales team building, and of course your homegrown hospitality right from the trenches kind of knowledge. And thanks for that subscribe, by the way. Hidden expense number 3 is predatory vendors. Every short-term rental operator that enters the Airbnb space will hire people through contracts. It is very rare that you're an all-star photographer and you have all the time in the world to do your housekeeping. Real estate photographers are bad at this, by the way. I recommend you don't hire them. I've got a video at the end of this video to tell you why real estate photographers are bad. But photographers either way are expensive. And beyond photography, once you're running your business, housekeepers have gotten more and more expensive by the year. And the reason why is most Airbnb operators do not understand a crucial, basic, but not obvious lesson about hiring vendors and contractors. Never be slave to one. Never have just one employee doing something. Never have just one vendor in charge of your X's, your Y's, or your Z's. Over the last few years, housekeepers have discovered that they are in control, so they're raising their rates. Every host needs them. If they don't get the property cleaned right now, the guest in 2 hours gets a refund, a very big, fat refund. And because owners don't have multiple vendors that are bidding against each other, the one housekeeper gets to set the rates, and those rates are climbing. My advice for you, before you ever do what I do, which is hire people by the hour, that's a long story, I would like you to shop multiple housekeepers, get bids from them, get commitments from them, and even start to bid them against each other, telling one that another person has a certain rate, telling the other that there was a counteroffer. And always have an eager company at the ready for when one lets you down, you call that one, they'll be there in 30 minutes to clean when the other person failed. Short-term renting by the night is dark and full of terrors. There are many vendors who want to take all of your money. If you learn this lesson through your photographer and your housekeeper, you'll be better prepared for all the vendors yet to come. Hidden expense number 4 is an opportunity cost. Your listing can always make more money. But at one point, your listing will stop making as much as it could because you either bring on the wrong co-host who does not know enough about this industry, or you try to run this yourself and you do not self-educate enough on all the aspects that you need to learn. The fact that you're on this YouTube channel right now, I've got to give it to you. You could probably skip this one if you are DIY, but I still need to warn you. There are 7 key pillars in this business model that include revenue management, guest experience, supply chain, managing housekeepers, tons of stuff. So you're going to DIY the whole way, but then end up bad at a couple of these. So you do want to invest in experts where you're not going to be able to be an expert, but you need to know that those experts are really committed to what they know and what they do best. Continued education is going to be your best friend, and you need to hold all of your vendors and partners accountable for the same. Hidden expense number 5 is one your parents warned you about. You get what you pay for, and that is replacing cheap furniture. When you launch a short-term rental property, we want to consider the lifetime of the property. If you're going to hold that property for 5 years, why buy a couch that's going to break in 6 months? I've made this mistake so many times. I've bought stuff on Amazon or Alibaba or Wayfair, and I bought it at the price I wanted, and then it broke and I had to buy it again. So I doubled my expense, tripled because I had to buy a better product after that. So instead of $1,500 on 2 couches, I could have spent $900 or $1,000 on one. I have a beautiful video on this topic that I will put at the end of this video. Everything you need to know about choosing the right furniture when you launch your property. This applies to anything that should stand the test of time. Artwork is a little less important. It can be more fragile. It stays on the wall. But anything that somebody interacts with has to be durable, cleanable, replaceable, etc. Everything that the video at the end of this video will tell you about. Hidden expense number 6 is not avoidable, but it is still hidden. Most people do not understand that holding a property has upkeep costs. And the one that I think most hosts miss is painting. When people come into your Airbnb, they're going to scratch the front walls with their luggage. It's almost impossible that they're not going to scrape the door and scrape the foyer. You're going to be touch-up painting the front way more than you think that you should. Also stairwells, this happens all the time. If you have bedrooms upstairs, people will drag that suitcase upstairs and scratch the wall. Additionally, batteries for the TV remotes, replacing sheets and linens when a guest stains them or rips them. Airbnb really isn't paying for those like they used to or like they should. Replacing air filters, consumables like spices and olive oil and cleaning supplies. All of these upkeep costs are monthly expenses that you should plan for. You should always have a little breathing room in your operational model to buy some stuff. This is where I like to pay yourself first. Just put 10% of all of your top line revenue into a kiddie account, like a slush fund. And whenever you need something, you can pull money from it. If you get really big in this industry, there's a trick that you can use right here to write off $2 million a year in expenses. There's a whole playbook on big stuff like that in Cracking Superhost. It's the biggest mentorship in the world for short-term rentals. And we've just switched to a membership model, no contract, by the month, private one-on-one coaching. There's a link down below to talk to my team if you'd like to be coached by the industry's biggest nerd in the space. And that is not a necessary expense here at number 6. You can continue to learn right here for free, by the way. But these upkeep costs, if you do not spend money on them, you run into the bigger one, which is hidden expense number 7, which is the consequence of not upkeeping your property properly. Say that 5 times fast. Major breakdowns. This property right here, when I picked it up, the landlord did not have air filters in his AC. None. So it was sucking up lint and all this other stuff. Eventually, this AC unit went down. It caused a leak from the 3rd floor into the 2nd, into the kitchen, and we had to cancel 45 days of reservations. The Airbnb listing still has not recovered from that very damning experience. Now, the landlord wants to be a jerk about it, didn't want to pay for our downtime. Of course, he paid to fix his own AC unit. He tried to blame it on us. We hadn't had the property long enough for it to be our fault. And this is on me. Every time I pick up a property, I look to see if it's been well maintained. I did not think to check for negligence regarding the AC unit. Everything looked legit, but I should have opened that bay door to make sure a filter was there. Mastery, my friends, is in the attention to detail, and I messed that one up. If you're an owner, that's on you, right? Your AC goes down, that's your full expense. Of course, you might have it insured. I recommend that. But think of neglect like a loan with a very high interest rate. Sure, you get to save 20 bucks here, 50 bucks there. But then when that bill comes due, $10,000, and you don't want to pay it when it comes. And you're never prepared when it comes. Small expenses today save us from big expenses tomorrow. When I was homeless, by the way, yes, I was homeless in 2009, I snuck in to an entrepreneurship course in Houston. There was a professor named Ken who founded a company called Slab Gasket. Big, cool guy. And he did a semester on cash. And in that semester on cash that I snuck into, he talked about insurances. He said, yes, insurances are more expensive than the lifetime cost of the insurance, usually. But what insurances do is they prevent unexpected volatility in your operational model. If your company runs on 12% operating margins, and with insurance that becomes 10.5%, and you can save yourself from ever having an expense that drives you 80% negative, your company will survive at 10.5% operating margin. But without that insurance, you're at 12%, and then something bad happens. In our case, let's say the house burns down. You now lose everything. It's the punch you don't see coming that puts you down. Insurance is like paying a mafia to protect your business. And thus, I do recommend that if you don't have a huge savings account for your business, you should insure anything that is material to the operating future of your company. Protect your cash flows. If you would like me to do a real video on insurances in this space, put it down in the comments. If it's interesting enough to you guys, I'll do it. And thanks in advance. Please guide me. I'm just a creator here after all. Hidden expense number 8 is a consequence of bad decisions that you make while you operate your business. And those bad decisions are bad documentation. When a housekeeper cleans, they should take good, solid photos as proof that you've cleaned. When an Airbnb guest communicates with you, you should always do it in writing, so it's all documented. The rise of generated photo and video increase the likelihood that people will try to defraud us through fake documentation and get free nights of stay, or get a refund after they've stayed. And Airbnb's change to chargebacks means that if somebody charges back against the bank and says that they did not get the service that they were provided, Airbnb will charge you for that chargeback. Now, Airbnb will try to fight to win that chargeback, which means they're going to rely upon you for solid documentation. They're not going to call and ask you, please give us documentation. I don't think that's going to happen, but they're going to passively look at the details of your reservation and try to prove that someone's stay was legitimate and they got services rendered. And further, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Airbnb can do this to you as well. You might have to go to arbitration and say, Airbnb, you owe me money for X, Y, or Z. And an arbitrator, a third party, is going to look at your documentation. So for you to defend yourself against cleaning fee refunds, nightly rate refunds, chargebacks down the road, arbitration against Airbnb, solid documentation is the best self-defense. And I hate to break it to you, friend, there's not a single host in the space that doesn't have to learn this lesson the hard way. So try to learn it now. And that way, it'll save you $1,000 or $20,000 heartache down the road. Because yes, if somebody breaks something massive and your documentation isn't good, Airbnb won't pay you. It is the finest of fine writings in Airbnb's air cover. And again, another reason insurance could be your friend in this case. You know what? I probably should do a video on insurance because the 9th hidden expense is also one that can be mitigated by insurance. It's downtime. There are some insurances that will insure against business income loss for downtime. Airbnb's air cover does this as well. Let me explain that. Downtime occurs when someone cancels a reservation due to a maintenance issue, or Airbnb makes a judgment against you that you did something wrong to a guest and Airbnb blocks your calendar. Things like this. Now, what I like to do, because Airbnb is so strict on blocking calendars for every little thing, is if a guest overstays, they're supposed to leave at 11 a.m., but they don't check out until 1 p.m., I'll tell Airbnb we are at a risk of not being able to clean for the next guest. If both reservations are Airbnb, meaning one Airbnb guest did something wrong that causes the next guest to have an issue, you can cancel that upcoming reservation and Airbnb still has to pay you for that. That is their loss of income coverage in air cover, but that is the extent. They both have to be Airbnb and the future reservation has to already exist and you have to cancel it for cause. In the cases that it's not so clean, you can still insure against that loss of income. Moral of the story here, though, is even when there's not reservations involved, the downtime from the major breakdown of the HVAC, or the downtime of having to change your design style because it was the wrong design, or the downtime of having a pipe break because you didn't practice good winter rectification or whatever, all of these days that you cannot take a guest is money out of your pocket. Like we talked about in expense number 2, there's a concept called contribution margin. The first dollar that you make every month has to go to your mortgage or your rent. The 10th, the 100th. Then you have to pay your electric bill and you have to pay whatever other fixed expenses. You might have to make $3,000 a month that all go to expenses before the next reservation that puts you up to $3,500 starts to make you profit. But after $3,500, every dollar is almost pure profit. This is the definition of contribution margin. For this reason, we want to guard against things like downtime because in our world, we don't get to make profit every booking. That's not how we work. Every reservation we get can get us to the point that we can then make profit, but those 10 days that you were down were the 10 days that you would make profit. This sounds so simple, but many people can't wrap their mind around this concept. There is not profit in every single sale that you make. And for this reason, people make tons of mistakes in the way that they do revenue management and change their prices and set their rates for their short-term rental. That's not a hidden expense in this video because I think that's kind of obvious, but I've got a whole playlist on pricing strategy if you don't find that obvious. Link to that down below also. Now, hidden expense number 10, the last one before you click the next video at the end of this one to continue your Airbnb education, is runaway expenses and waste. If a guest isn't in your house for a week, you should have the thermostat changed so you're not burning your AC for a week. This property, we made that mistake once, and I think our electric bill was $300 more than it should have been because while we were getting things repaired and fixed for water damage, we let the AC run at just too low of a temperature. Bad call. Your washer and dryer may not be efficient enough. It might be a water hog, it might be an energy hog. Your water pressure might be too high, so you burn through hot water way too fast when someone takes a shower. You may not be renegotiating your electric rates or your internet rates. If you have a building of apartments through arbitrage like me, and you're assigning an internet account per apartment instead of meshing them together, you're overspending on internet. And if you're not billing guests for the little damages and little expenses, you're letting those bleed out too. That is also waste. Don't try to be too much of a nice guy and not charge people for stuff if they're not a guest that you know is coming back. If you don't have a direct booking strategy or a rebooking strategy and someone finds you on Airbnb, I nearly guarantee you that they're not going to come back to your place. except for certain hosts here. And if you're a host who has people come back, you already know that you're one of those hosts. So you can skip this bit of advice, but 97% of you won't have your Airbnb guest ever come back. So not charging them the $15 of damage is just $15 out of your pocket. And if you're worried about bad reviews, we've got a ton of videos on this channel on how to dispute bad reviews. In Cracking Superhost, my team also built an AI that fights Airbnb reviews. We've got like a 90% success rate. We're doing real good with that. So do not be afraid of negative reviews. Charge people their money because you're not working so hard just so your kids can't have the nice Christmas present this year. You're giving that money away. Big picture, most hosts die by 1,000 tiny cuts. Manage your cuts and insure against the big ones. And I think you're gonna be just fine. Thank you so much for watching this video. Reminder, watch this video next. It'll make you a better host. And as always, I'll see you on the other side.